Dr. Scott, define epidemiology, and what does that really mean, and what is the science behind that?
Okay. Well, the dictionary definition of epidemiology is the study of the distribution and determinants of disease in populations. Okay, and it's a fairly short definition, but each of those major words has impact. So the study is a way of saying it's as much method as it is science. And the method of epidemiology tends to be observation. But coming up with a way of structuring observation and analyzing the data by sampling from populations, determining risk factors, determining the distribution of the disease, and doing this with some rigor. Okay, now epidemiology suffers, if you will, from the inability to directly infer causation for the simple reason that we don't experiment. We don't apply the experimental factors to a group of animals or to people and follow them. So in terms of our ability to infer causal inference, it is somewhat lower than if we use a clinical trial or a field trial or an experiment. On the other hand, we're able to observe things in populations as they naturally exist. So if I want to say what is the burden of disease associated with methicillin-resistant Staph aureus in this population of College Station, there's no experiment that's ever going to determine that. I need to design a study to randomly sample individuals to determine whether or not they were infected with MRSA, to tally those results and to publish them with some degree of confidence. And that's the distribution of the disease in the population. If I also want to determine whether there's a difference between males or females, athletes versus non-athletes, the old versus young, now I'm starting to look at the determinants of infection. And that sort of brings it full circle in terms of what is the burden of MRSA in this population and what are the risk factors for having MRSA. None of that can be done through experimentation. However, where it tends to fail is if I say, is using a new drug, drug A, versus an old drug, drug B, better for treating MRSA? If I simply observe individuals who have purchased drug A or drug B, there's a lot of potential biases that could be introduced. And so that's not the ideal way to evaluate drug treatments or other things. It's best to use an experimental design. Right. And so the problem with epidemiology as a science is that the expectation of people that read the results, especially media or the general public, is that this one study has answered for once and for all this dilemma that has posed a problem for society for thousands of years. And that doesn't happen. It's yet another piece of evidence that, combined with everything else that we know, should help guide us towards making the best decision at this point in time. But there's never an end to the question solved by one particular study. And that applies for experimentation as well. In fact, what some people put forward as the gold standard for evaluating causation is the meta-analysis or systematic review of many clinical trials, and to put them together and to come up with a summary odds ratio, for example, that says across 20 clinical trials of drug A versus drug B, drug A was better, by this much. And that's really where we need to put ourselves in terms of making decisions that impact public health, that impact patient outcomes. If you're a physician, if you're somebody making decisions about allocating healthcare resources, that's the kind of study you want to read. But you can't get to there until those 20 individual investigators finish publishing their results. And so they all add up, but any one study unto itself is not sufficient. And I think that's part of what you uncover when you read a newspaper article, because scientists, like most people, need encouragement to continue their work, which involves funding. And so that involves, acquiring coverage of their work. And we're all excited by our results, and we all want to share them. And so, yeah.